Hello and welcome to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. Today I'm very pleased to say that I've got Freddy Garland. I was going to call him Freddy Flowers there for a second, but the founder of Freddy Flowers. We're here at the new Covent Garden Flower Market and it is about 6:30 a.m. This is good fun. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Amrit. Lovely to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show. So, Freddy, what is Freddy's Flowers?
So Freddy's Flowers, I started it in October 2014, and it is a subscription service of flowers where we deliver a selection of carefully curated flowers to 30,000 people in the UK and Germany. 30,000 people, yeah.
Wow.
It's been going for 10 years now and going really, really well.
That is amazing. And everyone's got their Freddy's Flowers story. I'll tell you mine. So I'm walking down the street. I'm minding my own business, and this very charming young man on a bike with lots of flowers there starts telling me, would you like a flower subscription? I was like, what the hell's one of those?
Yep.
And next thing you know, I have a flower subscription.
You did do it.
I did do it. And that was my first intro to Freddy's Flowers.
Very good.
And when that box arrives, I mean, the happiness that flows through the house. So it's amazing with the little card of telling me, information about the flowers, how to do it, how to keep them going. Wonderful.
Well, first, I'm very glad our sales team were doing an excellent job. And no, that's really good. They're amazing, actually. And then, with the flowers, something I'm very passionate about is teaching or informing customers how to put their arrangements together. So we kind of do have little cards in the box saying, here's what you do, here's how to look after the flowers. And then also I do lots of little videos teaching people what to do and things like that. So
amazing.
No, very joyful. I think that what you've honed in on there is very important as well. Like customers really speak to how flowers are just such a joyful, creative thing.
Truly.
And when I started, that was sort of one of the main visions actually, was perhaps seeing flowers as, more a piece of art or, something really creative. And in a world of sort of technology, you can get very hands-on with flowers and it's very, very powerful, really.
Well, the thing that really struck me was that you've taken this very classic business model and made it extremely modern, both in the way that you deliver, and we'll get into that, but also in the whole look and feel of that. I mean, how has that come to be?
Well, I suppose the original thought, and actually looking around here, is quite an interesting thought starter, because I suppose when you come to New Covent Garden Flower Market, what you have to purchase is a whole wrap of a whole different, load of flowers. Whereas I think what I thought was the power was in the curation of sort of, 6 or 7 different elements, which you actually can't really do anywhere except a very expensive florist. So it was trying to kind of break up these wraps, and through that you can create a very good value arrangement. I suppose with each bunch, it was trying to find unique and interesting stems that all work together. So colour's a very important element of it. Does that answer your questions? It's trying to create, sort of each arrangement looking really different and interesting. So a customer looks at it and thinks, wow, that's a cool bunch of flowers,
And it really is. I mean, actually, because you can have a bunch of flowers that I've picked out, it's like, they're flowers. And then you can have the flowers that arrive, and you're like, gosh, I mean, wow, they're flowers. They are
or just
decorative.
Different, or things that you may not have seen. And I think people in their houses or in their homes often have their spots or various different areas where they'll put their flowers. And like I said, it becomes more of this kind of seasonal, evolving artwork, which is a bit naff, but it becomes more. Each one has a sort of personality to it, rather than just a bunch that you've bought in the supermarket and lacks that sort of creative process. So I think our customers take a lot of ownership over their creations that they've made, which again is really nice, and it's very creative. We get a lot of kids getting involved, which is really nice, and so the whole thing's. And then the other element of it is, certain flowers last longer than others. So
they're the flowers I need.
They're the flowers. Exactly. But then customers get really creative with them and might do little tablescapes with them and things like that. So it becomes this whole kind of creative world beyond just that bunch. which is rather
Amazing.
nice.
How interesting. So Freddie, why through the post? Where did that come from? For context, if you can explain what that whole thing means.
Yeah, so I suppose we deliver, all of our flowers come in, for want of a better expression, like flat pack boxes, so they're all laid out, ready to be arranged. And, you know, I used to work for a company for 4 years called Abel and Cole that delivers organic fruit and vegetables. I did a lot of door-to-door sales for them. And I suppose there I recognised, you know, that it's a great model. You know, a regular delivery of veg or flowers is a great thing. I suppose my love for flowers came from the fact that my mum and dad had a flower shop for 30 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Did you not? No,
that's
they in Pimlico in Orange Square, Dad had a flower shop, so I sort of grew up in the flower shop. So I suppose the marriage of working at Abel and Cole and seeing a subscription model, and then my parents like sort of there's sort of in my blood, I suppose, that the essence of flowers. I put those together, and the only, you know, and delivery. Well, the easiest, most environmentally friendly, economical way to deliver is, you know, you set a delivery route.
Yeah.
And being able to leave the flowers on someone's doorstep is you know, they don't have to be in, is the best way to do it.
That is amazing.
So yeah, we have almost all of our deliveries within the M25. 97% are made by electric bike.
Really?
Yeah. And they absolutely, you know, they can do up to 140 each in a day, these bikes, and they just ping around London, leaving flowers on the doorstep for people. So they don't actually go through the letterbox. That's always a bit of a myth. But they survive very well, and it's great. Yeah,
amazing. That is super interesting. So you've taken these two really interesting experiences that you've had, Abel and Cole and your parents' florists, and put that together. And I think, you know, that is some serious entrepreneurial stuff there.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, I never thought about weirdly, I can never quite pinpoint why, when flowers started emerging in my mind as a thing. But I suppose, I sort of reached my ceiling at Abel and Cole. I sort of started realizing I know how to speak to people on the doorstep, and I've had a great experience of that, and it's actually really quite nice. Like, peculiarly, when you're chatting to someone about something really nice on the doorstep, they freaking love it. You know, it's like, actually, the equation I used to put was like, if a farmer kind of came from his farm and knocked on your doorstep and said, do you want this? You wouldn't say like, bugger off. You'd be really engaged and interested, you know? So if you take that approach, I suppose so entrepreneurial, I suppose it was, but I felt more just like less the sort of business of it and more very passionate about the idea that I had.
Yeah.
And I felt more just like, I really want people to experience this this idea. You know, I wasn't particularly business minded at the time. I sort of, that wasn't my default. You know, I was quite a sort of anxious 27-year-old at the time. It was just like, you know, I've got to go out and get, you know, people have got to try these flowers.
So what was the best experience that you had of that? A little story from someone's door?
No, I think it was more just, you know, literally, I suppose the first day was probably the most acutely amazing in a way, because I'd moved back in with my mum and dad who lived in Wandsworth. I'd set up a tent in the garden to sort of pack the flowers. So me and my mum would come here actually every morning to buy the flowers. The first day I went and knocked on doors. I sort of cycled to a street that I thought looked nice in Wandsworth, and I had a clipboard with a photograph of some flowers on it. And I remember like within an hour, I got someone who said, I'll give it a, you know, I was knocking on a door for deliveries on Friday. Yeah. Because I wanted people to have the same delivery day in Wandsworth. So my first delivery day was a Friday in Wandsworth. Within 3 hours, I sort of got 3 people who said they'd be up for giving it a go. And I cycled back, and mum and dad were like, wow. Actually, dad was quite concerned for me because he sort of didn't think flowers were a great avenue. He, you know, whilst the nostalgia of the flower shop
Yeah.
was quite potent. He, it's quite stressful for him.
Well, I mean, it is. I've got friends of mine that had florists and really hard businesses, actually, to operate with product that dies on you and all that. There's a lot of things to really kind of contest with there. So I understand that.
Yeah, and I think I think one of the reasons what we do is really great, actually, is because we're, with a subscription or with a regular delivery, we're able to quite cleverly now see, up to, years in advance how many deliveries we would hope to have in a given week, which means we can say to a grower, we need this precise volume of stems for that week. Yeah. So there's very little wastage. I think the traditional floristry sector has like 40% wastage, whereas we're down at, 0.5%.
Which is phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. And it means also the flowers, because they're literally cut to order, they're unbelievably fresh as well. So they really are like longest lasting, freshest, really, great.
That is just very cool.
So it kind of all works in this quite, and then the sort of sustainability angle is significantly great as well. So the whole thing actually makes quite it's compelling, I suppose.
It's a very compelling story. It's and actually that's what got me to buy, because it wasn't just the flowers, it was the whole backstory with it. When this chap was talking to me about, it's in a box and you can recycle that, and it's on e-bikes and all of that kind of thing, and I thought, wow, what a wonderful story. I felt very romanticized by the whole episode, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
I suppose in the very early days, that kind of scrappy startup nature was slightly that that was the key story in a way. It was kind of support me, and we've got a great business, but it felt. And actually now, I suppose, we're really trying to become more of a 10 years in, and the sort of startup story is still there, but it's now how do we actually show that our flowers really are the most beautiful and interesting and artistic. So that's kind of what we're working on for the next chapter of time, really, is making our flowers feel less like startup-y as such, and more like, oh wow, aspirational, and so that's our real brand moment now, I suppose, is trying to tap into all that.
And so staying on that for a second, so I've often thought that there is such a close synergy between flowers, wellness, and sort of, that older people space that I sit in general. And we see it a lot. We run things called Thrive Clubs around the country. So free clubs where community-based, where older people can just come in, drop in and do a yoga class or a exercise class of some description, or an art class, or flower arranging. Yep. We often find that affiliation with being creative and that community space is huge.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
Because you do some stuff in that space, I think, already?
We do. So I'd say that's exactly true. Flowers have a huge impact, I think, on people's minds, and also their emotions. Flowers bring back a lot of emotion for people. They've often been present in sort of their younger life, or often a certain scent or look of a flower. It brings back a lot of memories, and we do quite a lot of work with wonderful charity called Dementia Adventure. And I've done a lot of sort of arranging classes with people who have quite progressed with dementia, and it's quite amazing how this when you I could put one of our arrangements together in really quite quickly, but when you're working with people with dementia, it's amazing how I can take an hour just talking them through it, and finding all the little just defoliating a stem becomes very, very kind of potent and interesting, and it's a very powerful, amazing thing. Actually, it's probably some of the nicest work I've ever done, because you can visibly see the impact it's having.
Yes.
And everyone's just sort of the snipping of a stem. It all kind of really hones in on, in a way, what flowers do for people at on a day-to-day level.
Yeah.
You kind of witness it on this macro level of what an amazing experience it kind of is.
Very beautiful.
So it's a very amazing thing. And
very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And so I think I may have mentioned to you that I have recently become an ambassador for the Royal Osteoporosis Society.
Yeah.
And I'd love to connect with you on that and do some work. I don't know, a sponsored event where we can raise money
Definitely.
together for them, and
Yeah.
get people in on a webinar for it or something.
Well, actually, webinars work really peculiarly well. So I've done another one of those where we've had like 150 people, again, people with dementia and their carers online, and we sent a flower arrangement to everyone.
Yeah.
And so we definitely do something like that. It's very, even though you're online, actually the experience is still pretty amazing, bizarrely.
Yeah, very
because
cool.
you can see everyone and it's good. Yeah.
Let's. I'll lock you in there.
Lock me in, Amrit.
I've got some
me
evidence here.
Exactly.
So tell me about the scale. So you 30,000, customers on one hand, and you start in a tent in your mum and dad's garden on the other hand. So, what happened in between there?
Well, the journey has been extremely interesting. I mean, I have to say, clearly I started out with 0 customers, and then we had our sort of key, the way I started, like I said, was through door store sales. I got a load of my friends, my brother's friends, fresh out of university to help me wander around the streets of London, chat, speaking to people, that kind of thing. Then so that was how we operated for a while. We didn't go into the whole kind of digital marketing space at all for many years. That kind of for 6 years or 5 or 6 years, we were purely face to face and going to events, Chelsea Flower Show, all that kind of thing.
Nice.
I suppose then we started dabbling in that. COVID then happened, and actually the business kind of completely rocketed at that point. It was a very peculiar time.
What a great time to have a flower subscription.
Well, precisely, and also people sending friends.
Yeah, of course.
Sending friends flowers.
Yeah.
We just started dabbling in that. Should people be able to send flowers to, i.e. non-subscription, which is something we do a lot more now. So the business kind of boomed then to a point of almost like confusion, It was sort of fairly bizarre and surreal. And you then kind of get this heartbeat where that happened, and then actually it kind of didn't do quite so well after COVID, and suddenly everyone's like strapped in a bit more and like, crikey. Now we're kind of leveling out, and I suppose if our business was almost like a heartbeat, we're still on a very nice upwards trajectory, but only in a way just starting to really feel in control again, I'd say, and I feel unbelievably fresh and excited about the future. It feels actually bizarrely now like we're just getting started again. I sort of feel.
Do you feel like that?
I do really. I feel my role is very much now the sort of brand face and the teacher of flowers and florists and informing customers. Chatting to interesting people. Like you, Amrit, of course.
Of course.
But, really being a person of flowers.
Yeah.
And I feel that's kind of the direction we're heading in now.
Yeah.
It feels great, basically. Yeah.
Wow, that is super cool.
Yeah.
So what happened with this flower subscription business that you've got? I mean, how did you get that to the first million? What were the segments there? What were the tools that you use? How did you sort of scale that?
Well, I think in the very early days, it was purely around. Well, the first thing was at the end of Abel and Cole, I went to Mr. Abel, who started Abel and Cole, and I said, would you be interested in helping me? I've got this great idea. He'd just left Abel and Cole actually.
Right.
So I said, I've got a cracking idea. Like, would you be interested? He said, possibly. See how you get on.
Sounds pretty great at 27. Now.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly is very positive.
I remember the email thread well. Trying to pose the right email and hope
pre-chat GPT.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I then went off, did however long sort of on my own, really trying to make it work. And that was me and my mum. I'd be getting up at 3 a.m, coming here, doing 100-hour weeks for many weeks, completely pickling myself, getting to a point of like, real almost semi-meltdown, But at which point I had a case, I was like, this is doing well. I've got, however many hundred customers, which I'm sort of doing on my own. And anyway, Keith very kindly lent me a bit of money to get started, and a huge amount of advice, and and then it just became a case really of working how to spread the word more became the key thing. So and literally it just became about organising the team of face-to-face sales people that I'd done for many years at Abel and Cole, and just expanding that thing. So that's kind of literally how we got our first. There's nothing complicated about it. It was just spread the word more. We had
do the push-ups.
I suppose the logistics was actually in a way the more complicated thing, like how to pack the boxes and deliver them, and that kind of the background stuff was almost more complicated in a way. So we went through various offices quite quickly. We started in Sunbury-on-Thames, had a little office there, then moved to Clapham, then moved to Wandsworth Common, and sort of slowly we're just building. Our first hire, official full-time hire, was someone in customer services to do that. Lovely girl called Beanie, and then so it was really just a sort of management operation of how to cater for the customers that were pouring in from our face-to-face sales operation. But it was it felt very. If I compared it to how businesses operate today, it was very there's nothing complicated about it. It was literally like go out, knock on doors, get customers, and then facilitate that.
I love that. I've got to say. I mean, and I sort of feel like when you're scaling businesses, often you just go back to that. What was a business plan 10 years ago? Let's pick that up and let's do that again. And often for me, if one of my franchisees comes to me and says, "How do I add the next million?" It's like, great, dust out that old business plan, and it's go do the push-ups again, right? That is really it.
And what I might comment on that is it fundamentally takes you back to like your core essence, which is what are you offering?
Yes.
And kind of is that good enough, I suppose, and do people want it? Because I think often with a business you can have, there's so much work put into like possibly the branding, the like how we're going to do it, and then actually it just comes down to the key moment of like, is someone going to buy this? And how you can spend a ton of money on kind of making things look pretty and stuff, but actually, so the sort of pinch point is like when you're having a conversation with someone on their doorstep, are they prepared to buy it?
Yes,
You know what I mean? And that didn't cost anything really. It was just like the product had to stand up,
which is
to
great.
Itself
on
that. So it was a very old school, for want of a better expression.
No, I love that. It's great. That's the only way. So we're sort of 10 years ago. You've pulled in a few 100-hour weeks, or quite a few by the sounds of it, and then you've got a business case, and you've gone to Mr. Abel, and that has worked out. How have you found scaling with partners and so on? I mean, is that a difficult thing? And
well, it's been interesting for me in so much. I suppose my skill has always been the sort of brand and actual the creative side of it. So I suppose I think the key has always been having an incredible team of people to help. I mean, like I said, like I had absolutely no idea what to do at 27. I was completely out of my depth, and so had help. And I suppose for me, it's been an interesting journey of trying to work out actually possibly what I'm good at through this kind of 10 years of, when something starts, you feel unbelievably close to the whole thing. And I suppose for me, it's been about how to let go of lots of elements to people who are significantly better at it than me, and kind of, I suppose in the early that you almost treat your business as like your child. It's actually too big a it's unhealthy in a way that's how it is perceived, but you kind of and you're so close to all of it, whereas I suppose through 10 years I've kind of learned how to be able to sort of make sure that other people can do things and not feel nearly so attached to the whole thing, and actually realised that what I'm reasonably good at is the flowers and the creative side of it and the front of it basically.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
I'm rubbish at the back end of it, and have amazing people who have helped. You know, we had some investors along the way who have who invested in the business. That's been quite an interesting relationship. But you know, that's actually been less my concern. You know?
Yeah. Which is really interesting. I think you've hit on so many really intriguing things. When you were talking about Keith Abel earlier, and you were talking about, you know, what he offered was not just money; it was sort of intellectual support on how to do this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is really intriguing. You can go to a bank and get some lending, or you can find people with money.
Yeah.
But often the difficult thing, I think, is to really upscale yourself as a leader, as a business owner. And I think, you know, by surrounding yourself with the right people, you very much do that.
Yeah, it's the mentorship. You know?
Exactly.
I remember a moment where, you know, I hadn't paid people on time, and I sort of got a call from him saying, you know, literally, why the fuck has this person not been paid yet? And I was just like, I didn't even know. You know, you don't necessarily even recognise that people expect the people, you know, need to be paid at a certain time. And when you come in something at, like I said, 27, no business experience, you actually don't know anything, you know. And
we don't understand that guy's got a mortgage to pay, and you know he's got staff to pay, all that, you know, and so on. And it's a whole there's a whole knock-on effect, right?
And you know, it requires people being very actually really quite tough on you to sort of set the tone. And I think Keith certainly was phenomenal at setting the tone. You know? There was no wiggle room. It was just you really have to hit this level of to succeed. And I think if you set the tone like that, then everyone starts, you know, follows you.
No, fantastic. And that is it, right? You know, you as a leader very much set the tone, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you have to be. I mean, I suppose how I set the tone in the early days was just working my socks off and trying to sort of be across everything. But actually, in hindsight, you know, well, no, not in hindsight, because it works perfectly for us. That's kind of how we started. But what I would now learn to do is actually be much more above things. You know, what I have learned from my early days is that working 100-hour weeks is not the way to go. You need to be much more like above everything, overseeing everything. You know,
truly.
But I suppose you can't really start a business like that, you know. So
no, well,
it's
of
all
course,
very well saying that, but if you don't have cash and you don't, you know, how else are you going to do it?
I mean, I am a very big believer in the amount of money you have really sort of it shapes the type of business that you operate. And you know, I've often, you know, all of my businesses have been bootstrapped, and it's always been, right, so how do you figure this out? You know, you know, we recently wanted to make a key hire in a CFO role, and I was like, well, okay, so actually, what we could do is start an accountancy business so that we can hire the CFO. So you know, all of a sudden that works, and actually then we've got the IP there, and it makes you make really interesting decisions. And I think that being creative piece, the thing that I fear the most about scaling businesses is that you lose that creative piece because you can throw money at the issue.
Yeah. And so the early days actually often are the most creative because you don't have that much. Yeah, you just need to be as creative as possible with your thinking, and you can't just waste money. You really make it work as hard as you can. And I think in a way that's why the start of a business is often when a business isn't performing so well or is in its kind of scrappy stages, that's when you are the most creative and
truly
alive. You know,
it's amazing. So if you look forward 5 years, 10 years, or further. What's in store for both Freddy's Flowers and Freddy Garland?
Nice. Well, I'd say Freddy's Flowers is in a very exciting area in so much as there isn't really anyone who owns flowers. You know, I wouldn't say that there are lots of companies out there, but there's no one necessarily who you'd be like, I am definitely going to get my flowers from them. And I think we can be in that space of just like, whether it's a gift or flowers for your home or flowers for your tablescape that you want to do, or like vases or flower apparatus.
Yeah.
You know, literally being the home of flowers, for want of a better phrase, is what we could be, and not extending into like add-ons, you know,
Yeah.
all that, just being very focused on the fact that it's flowers and their so their surrounding items are the add-ons, but not drifting into like other funny gift type scenarios. And then, you know, and if we can sort of work with really interesting partners, I've referenced the sort of interior design space, but you know, be a stylish, like, great place, then that would be a really lovely place to be, so that our flowers feel very in keeping with art and interiors. And then for me personally, I suppose it's all about being the kind of embodiment of that, and sort of leading the charge on who we can speak to, you know, being a real florist and a real creative, and just trying to kind of, you know, enforce that message, I suppose.
Phenomenal.
So yeah, you know, like I said, it feels peculiarly, unbelievably fresh and exciting. And we've got some new, really exciting team members. And so yeah, it just feels like back to, you know, we're starting now in a way, which I feel good about.
Very cool. I mean, I love that. Starting now,
Yeah,
that's it. You know, it's and that is it, isn't it? I mean, businesses are very much about rebirth and continuing, and as soon as you're done, it's done.
I think so. Yeah, and I went through a phase of feeling very disenfranchised with the whole concept, but at the same point, I started trying to really think, like, is there anything else I would rather do than flowers? And I sort of couldn't, you know, actually, strange enough, the thought of coming up with a whole another idea sounded, you know, I was just like, but I really like flowers. I really like what we're trying, you know, what they're all about. So I sort of, as you say, it's kind of, there is a sense of rebirth about it. And I think, they do go up and down, businesses. So I feel good.
Very cool. And I usually end these things by asking a question. If you were advising somebody on how to add that next million on their business, what would you say?
Well, the only thing I can say is never ever try and do that through scraping on your product.
Yeah.
If that's a reasonable answer. So, you know, what people could do is just think, what I'm going to try and do is cut corners with the product and take that money and spank it on, you know, on marketing costs or whatever. And I categorically, I think it's got to come fairly organically, your growth. I mean, sure, you can like be quite clever with who you're speaking to, and, you know, introducing yourself to new audiences and things. But fundamentally, it comes down to making sure that you are relentlessly on top of your product and making sure it is the best in class. Yeah. And only then will you even vaguely have the opportunity to increase. At the moment you cut on that, you're screwed. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the show. Very great pleasure, Amrit. Loved it. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in to the show at the flower market. Until next time.